So, Commissioner, ladies and gentlemen, we celebrate Women's Day. Heartily welcome. My name is Michael Bubik. I'm the chairman of the Board of Global Responsibility. That is the Austrian Platform for Development and Humanitarian Aid. In this capacity, it is my privilege to open the second Humanitarian Congress, which is held under the patronage of Dr. Heinz Fischer, the Federal President of Austria. The Congress is organized by Austria's most prominent humanitarian organizations: Doctors Without Borders, CARE, Caritas, Diakonie, Hope 87, Jugend eine Welt, Light for the World, the Austrian Red Cross, and World Vision, in cooperation with the Department of Development Studies at the University of Vienna and the Global Responsibility Platform. It is a great honor for us to welcome today the European Union Commissioner for International Cooperation, Humanitarian Aid and Crisis Response, Commissioner Kristalina Georgieva. Heartily welcome. Please rest a Please rest a bit. Yeah? Sorry. I'm asked to give a few more words. Since 1992, and you will know that, when the initial Humanitarian Aid Office, ECHO, was set up in the Commission, assistance worth 14 billion euro has been provided to the beneficiaries in over 140 countries. Commissioner, let me thank you in the name of the Austrian humanitarian community that you will take part in the Humanitarian Congress and hold the opening speech, highlighting the importance of gender in humanitarian aid. Let me also thank all the international experts from Austria and abroad. It is fantastic that you have joined us to share your expertise and experience in humanitarian aid. Moreover, I'm delighted to welcome such a large audience in the beautiful setting of Vienna University. The impressive turnout shows best how important the topic is. Today it's, as we all know, International Women's Day. Believe me, it's no coincidence that we choose this date for the Humanitarian Congress. The Congress motto, Gender Matters, is more current than ever. In humanitarian aid, where the focus is on neutral assistance for the most vulnerable, it is vitally important to focus on special needs, equal opportunities, security, and medical care. The importance of gender aspects must not be underestimated, and this is precisely what we endeavor to underscore. The role and significance of humanitarian aid are undisputed worldwide due to ever worse and more frequent natural disasters and political crises. More people than ever need humanitarian aid. Now we come to Austria. Unfortunately, it's an undisputed fact that Austria's spending on humanitarian aid and development cooperation ranks very low compared to other European countries. If you look in your papers, you might see, I was shocked, it's a €1 per year per person in Austria what we are spending on humanitarian aid. Austria is one of the most prosperous countries in the world, but this is by no means reflected in the amount it spends on humanitarian aid. I'm aware that this is nothing new to many of you. We will, however, never tire in our efforts to repeat that Austria must assume international responsibility. A recent example is a campaign supported by more than 40 Austrian NGOs, which led, amongst other things, to the reversal of decisions to cut funding at least for 2013. And we will need all the strength not to let that cutting happen in 2014. Please join in the campaign. It's difficult to translate. Es ist nicht Wurst, which means it's not sausage. But we haven't found the right translation. So, this in mind, let me wish you an interesting, inspiring, informative Congress. And now I give the floor to you, Commissioner Georgieva. Thank you.
Thank you very much. As you can see, I jumped out of my seat to come and talk. It is only a small indication of how eager I was to come and join you today. And please do keep the good fight for more resources so we can help people in their most dire moment of need. This is who we Europeans are, and we must show it. Congratulations for the campaign. I'm really honored to be here with you today in this incredible setting. There is probably no better place in Austria. The University of Austria, being the oldest in the German-speaking world, is also one that has shown over the last decade in particular a commitment to gender equality in how recruitment of students and provision of scholarships are being done. And of course, as we heard, there is simply no better day in the whole year of International Women's Day for us to talk about gender in humanitarian aid and gender equality as a noble, worthy objective. Let me first start by congratulating all of you, men and women, on International Women's Day. We in Europe have gone a long way towards gender equality in access to education and jobs, in shattering the glass ceiling for women in leadership, in politics, in business. I was quite impressed to notice that here in Austria, there are now impressive number of women in the government, and no more holding the so-called soft portfolios of education and health. Austria has a finance minister who is a woman. Later today, I'm meeting with Ms. Johanna Mikl-Leitner, the Minister of Interior. And let's hope that having a woman finance minister would mean a better chance in your fight to get more resources for development and humanitarian aid. Let's hope. This to be seen, huh? But when we look at us in Europe, at our own record of achievement, two things are very clear. That behind our own averages of progress, we still have countries and areas where we are falling behind. Since we are in a university, reminds me my own years over there, being a student, and my professor of statistics saying that you can put your feet in the refrigerator and your head in the oven, and your temperature will be average, but you will be dead. So we have to admit that we have the Nordics out there, and we have some of our member states still not being close to gender equality as we would like to see it. And we also have areas like defense or civil protection, which is another part of my job, where women are few and far between in leadership. In civil protection, it's a lonely place to be as a woman, because in all our member states we have Sweden and me representing women in civil protection leadership meetings. So and that takes me to the second point, that we in Europe, we have a way to go. And we must go this way for ourselves, but also for the example we set for others. 2010 was a very important year for gender equality in Europe, because in September 2010, we adopted our EU strategy on gender equality. And it had two pillars: what we do at home and what we do in international cooperation and humanitarian aid. We have adopted 17 comprehensive indicators for advancement in gender equality that we support in our international work, from trying to account for the money we spend in supporting women, in development, in humanitarian action, to accounting for how well we have done to get women at the negotiating table in conflicts, more women to negotiate peace. For us in the humanitarian community, this focus on gender equality, not just for women, sensitivity for women and girls, but also for men and boys. This is not new. I'm sure many of you have experiences you will share today and tomorrow on what does it mean to be sensitive to gender. In our European consensus on humanitarian aid, which, by the way, is one of the most precious achievements of this community, of placing neutrality, impartiality, and independence of humanitarian aid at the heart of how we engage around the world. In this EU consensus on humanitarian aid, we made it very clear that in our activities, we must recognize the different needs, capacities, and contributions of women, girls, boys, and men. And there are three very important markers for how we act. First, to always strive to integrate gender considerations in humanitarian action. Second, very important, to actively involve women in decisions that affect their lives. And third, and this is where I think the fight has to gear up, to fight sexual and gender-based violence. We are now in the European Humanitarian Aid Service. Thank you for mentioning 20 years as of last year. We are now working on a new gender policy on mainstreaming gender in humanitarian aid. Maybe there are people in this room who have taken part in the consultation on this new policy. And we are basing this policy on three pillars. And they kind of stem from our work and stem from the European consensus on humanitarian aid. First pillar, integrate gender perspective into different aspects and different sectors of humanitarian work. Critical to start from needs assessment to design of humanitarian interventions, to implementations, to monitoring, to evaluation, and look at all aspects of our work in a comprehensive way. Second, target actions based on all what we have learned, target actions to respond to specific gender vulnerabilities. And I repeat, for women, girls, boys, men. And third, and this is where you are essential, seek to build capacity in our partner organizations. So if you have ideas how to do that, knock on our door. Well, it's an open door, no need to knock. Just come through, because we want to see our partners benefiting from this new policy. And I want to be very clear on something that each and every one of us here understands. These words, gender mainstreaming, gender marker, gender sensitivity, these words, for people in conflicts, for people suffering from disasters, especially for women and girls, they are often the difference between life and death. And it is crucial for us to step on this understanding that gender matters to people in very, very difficult circumstances to whom you are the only hope. How we do our work is crucial. And I want to go into a couple of stories. I want to talk about rape and sexual violence, protection of women, how difficult it is sometimes to reach out, to find women and girls. And finally, of the most important thing, that in an emergency, there is also an opportunity to empower women, to never be missed. So last year, let me start from gender-based violence, rape. Last year, on this very day, on March 8th, I was in Congo. I was in Panzi Hospital. How many of you know of Panzi Hospital? So this is a picture from the hospital. Next to me is a hero for Congolese women, Dr. Mukwege. And in the room, women are victims of rape. I didn't know of it until we left this room, and we didn't take a picture, but there were 3 generations of women raped. A 6-year-old girl, her mother, and her grandmother. And her mother was in this hospital not for the first time. The fact that Congo is called a capital of rape comes for a reason. But what we must do is to turn this reason into a determination to act. And what we do from the humanitarian service of the Commission in Congo is not only to support Dr. Mukwege. Actually, here you would see us gathering on 8th of March. Enormous energy, positive energy of women saying enough is enough, but also men joining, enough is enough. You would see me wearing a blue-white outfit. This is our Echo at 20 attire. And next to me is a woman who herself was a victim of rape, but decided that she would dedicate her life to help other women gather the courage to go back to their villages and live their lives with heads up. She's wearing the attire that everybody else on this day had in Bukavu. And the manifestation of enough is enough, the dancing and the singing that happened on this day, I would never forget. By the end of the day, I also wear the same attire. I just wanted to blend in this crowd. And that is where I think our resources to not only treat, but also prevent and help women go back to their communities. This is where our focus should be. Dr. Mukwege himself got attacked in his home a couple of months ago. We evacuated it on our Echo flight to Europe. He stayed in Europe for a while, and then he told me, I have to go back. Women count on me. And if I'm telling them that they have to have the courage to go to their villages, even if it is dangerous, I have to have the courage to do it myself. He went back. He was received as a hero. Women, I just only can imagine the dance that went for him. But it is not just DRC. So my message here is that we as humanitarian community have to be creative of providing support, not only for protection and treatment, but also for reintegration. And we must build bridges with our development colleagues so they take seriously the importance of community support where violence, especially violence against women, is a frequent occurrence. And it is not just Congo. As we sit in this room, we were just talking about Syria. There are very troubling news of young girls in the camps in Jordan, refugees in Lebanon, being sold by their families out of desperation to reach men. That abuse of the rights of women is something that we as humanitarian community have to address day in, day out. How many of you went on February 14th to take part in 1 billion rising? How many of you were there? Well, it is time to put an end to this. And on this issue, I just want to finish with a personal story. When I was growing up in my home country, Bulgaria, which is not Congo, it is not a conflict place, women who were raped would feel guilty and would keep quiet. And that is in Europe. Huh? So we have a big job to do, and I think we have built a lot of experience to do this job better. And that takes me to the point of sensitivity to women and measures we can take, simple measures we can take to protect women. This is a picture from a camp where in the very beginning, men and women would all go to the same place to receive their assistance packages, non-food items, but also food. And it was good that humanitarian workers there quickly recognized that men would get more than women. And sometimes, especially for families that are women-led families, this is catastrophic. So, simple step, we just separated one line for men and one line for women. So women would get fair treatment. Or when we are doing support activities in communities, it is a very simple step to provide protected environment for women to places that we know they're those to go, like water. In places affected by conflicts, very often a very simple measure we can take is to make sure that we first do demining of the pathways for women to go to sources of water or to fetch wood. We are cataloging these experiences, and I'm sure that you have your own that you can contribute, so we collectively can have very simple indicators that can turn into our famous gender markers for humanitarian activities that enhance protection for women. But sometimes we just cannot easily get to the women. And the story I want to tell you is a very personal story. It opened my eyes. Pakistan floods. Has any one of you been in Pakistan after the floods? It was horrendous. I went to an area where there was a mixture of Afghan refugees. Actually, these are the men on this picture, are Afghan refugees, and also local population. So we are going from one devastated village to another, to another, to another, and we see houses washed out, we see tents, we see lots of men. Not one woman. Not one woman. So where are the women? They cannot be exposed, even when a woman comes, like in this case me, they cannot be out in the open. It is culturally unacceptable. They're hiding in the tents. But that means that their access to assistance is much more limited. And that also means that for women-led households, probably assistance is not available at all. So actually, in this whole day, I met thousands of men, and actually they were very, very, very forthcoming, very friendly. And towards the end, and I kind of got desperate, am I going to see one woman towards the end of the day? I met these two girls at the kind of end of a tent camp area. I took a picture for them, but didn't stay too long because I was afraid that can endanger them because they're talking to these outsiders. But the point here is that as a community, we must strive to have more women in our ranks, even in areas that are dangerous. Not an easy task, especially with what is happening these days with health workers fighting polio in some places. But unless we have women, women there have no chance. But when we talk about the actions we can take as community, it is absolutely crucial to always remember that there are vulnerabilities, there are also strengths. Women are incredibly resilient. They are our hope for resilience of this world. And I would finish with this story. Last year was a very tough one for the Sahel, and so was 2010. In 7 years, the Sahel region was hit 3 times by severe droughts. And of course, women, girls, elderly, handicapped, these are the people who are most severely affected. We managed, and we should say this in Europe with pride, we managed, especially last year, to do the right thing. Act early, target the most vulnerable. But we did one more thing that I'm very proud of as European. Everywhere we could, we empowered women. The woman next to me, her name is Maori. She is one of women in a village where we provide vouchers. What she holds proudly in her hand is her voucher book. She gets the equivalent of 13 euros. And with this, she can feed her family. Maori has 4 children, she holds 1. The other 3 are slightly older. They're sleeping in the afternoon in the heat. If they're hungry, they ain't be sleeping. You know, they won't be able to sleep. And when I met with this village, they received me. Probably you have seen this in Niger or in Chad, in the Sahel. Women and men in separate groups. And all the women had these vouchers in their hands, you know, smiling. And the men were a little quieter, and they weren't so celebratory. And then I asked them, I actually talked to one of the men, and I said, how do you feel that we give the money to the women and not to you? And he said, you know, in the beginning, I really didn't like it. But then I thought, if you were to give me the money, I would have bought a bicycle, and we would have been hungry. And that point that women have this strength to actually make the right choices for their families. And if we empower women, not only that means their kids would be fed, but it also means that their status in their community goes up. This is something that we all in our work must reinforce time and again. I don't think that I have to make much of a closure after this picture. I think the smile of this woman's face speaks much louder than words. But let me just finish with the following. 2015. Oh, and by the way, before I move from this story, how many of you know of the Food Assistance Convention? Great. When I was here last year, I turned to the audience and I said, please help us to get Austria to be among the first countries to ratify the convention. And I can tell you the convention is now active and we Europeans made it possible. But the big story of this convention is that it is about empowering people through humanitarian assistance, because no more we dump on them our agricultural surpluses, ending up feeding the people but killing the local farmers. We put cash and vouchers in the hand of people always when we can, and by doing so we help them also help themselves, and we empower communities, we empower women. So to those of you who may have been voice towards the Austrian authorities to sign the convention, thank you. But we are now going to 2015. very critical year, Millennium Development Goals, what we are going to do in the world after. Well, I for one believe that nothing short of eradicating poverty and hunger is a goal worth pursuing within a generation. But I also know that we can only achieve this goal if all people, men and women, are able to contribute. And for that, achieving gender equality is absolutely paramount for success in a world that would be a better place for our children. Thank you.